Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're making Fromage Blanc. So, Fromage Blanc, or roughly translated into English, white cheese, which it is, it's a white cheese. It's very similar in consistency to yogurt. However, it doesn't taste like yogurt. And that's because it doesn't use the same process as yogurt. Fromage Blanc is a runny cheese. There's a little bit of whey coming off it. It's very soft, and instead of being cooked like yogurt does at a high temperature about above 40 degrees Celsius, Fromage Blanc is cooked at about 22 or 23 degrees Celsius, so much lower. Also, the starter cultures are different. Fromage Blanc uses a mesophilic starter culture, and yogurt, or styles of yogurt, use a thermophilic starter culture. So the flavours are different. This is not as sharp, and you can actually buy this in shops through France and the UK, labelled as Fromage Blanc. So without further ado, let me show you how I made Fromage Blanc in my own kitchen. So start off by sanitising all of your equipment. I prefer to boil my stainless steel equipment. The Fromage Blanc ingredients are 3 litres or 3 quarts of semi-skimmed cow's milk. I'm using a percentage of 1 to 2% fat, and I'm using pasteurised and homogenised milk, just store-bought milk. 1/8 of a teaspoon of aromatic mesophilic culture, 1/8 of a teaspoon or 0.75 millilitres of calcium chloride diluted in 2 tablespoons of non-chlorinated water, 2 drops of single strength liquid rennet, I'm using IMCU 200, and that's diluted in 2 tablespoons of non-chlorinated water, and 2 teaspoons of coarse salt. You can use between 1 and 2 teaspoons. So heat the milk to 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not very warm at all, and very easy to come up to that temperature. I'm just using the precision cooker as a water bath there in my kitchen sink. So now we're going to add the aromatic mesophilic culture, just sprinkle that over the surface. So I'm using a single sachet of the Mad Millie aromatic mesophilic culture. So allow the culture to rehydrate for 5 minutes. So after the 5 minutes, take the lid off, give it a stir. Stir the culture into the milk. Once you've stirred the culture in, I'm going to add the calcium chloride. This just helps make the curd set a lot better, especially when using pasteurised homogenised milk. Now we're going to add 1 tablespoon of the rennet solution, so not the entire amount, just 1 tablespoon. Bit of spillage there, but that's okay. Just tip that into the milk and then stir for no more than 1 minute. Pop the lid back on. Now we're going to allow the curds to set for 12 hours. This is a lot less than you would if you were making cream cheese, for instance. So check for a clean break. I'm just using the probe of my thermometer. Yes, that splits, so that's fine. Now remove from the heat. I'm just going to turn it off. I didn't have the precision cooker on the entire time. I just turned it on when it needed to warm back up to 22 Celsius. So just move the curds to the side and put your tight weave cheesecloth over your colander, because we're going to use it as a hanging bag. And then we're going to transfer the curds, which kind of looks like blancmange at the moment. I'm going to use our ladle and scoop out ladles of the curds and put them into the colander. So just be gentle when doing this. The curd structure is not very firm. And pour the rest of it in. There we go, all done. So now we're going to tie opposite corners of the cloth, and we're going to tie them up to form a bag for hanging and draining. So just 2 simple granny knots. There we go. I'm using a stainless steel hook. I hang the cheese in a draft-free place for 4 to 6 hours. More on that when Gavin has his comments at the end. There we are, hanging. I've got it in my laundry, which is draft-free, and it's at room temperature. So the next day, just transfer the cheese into a large bowl, just undo your granny knots, and then just roll it out of the cheesecloth. It doesn't stick, per se, to the cheesecloth. Just give it a bit of a roll once you've got the knots out of the way. There we go. So gently rolling, and it just comes out nice and cleanly. There we go. Now, if you only hang it for about 4 hours, the consistency of the cheese will be a lot runnier. I hung mine for 6, so I'm just using a whisk there just to break it up a little bit. So I added 2 teaspoons of salt. Now you could ease off on this if you didn't want it as salty and use only 1 teaspoon. So whisk that in. I'm using a little bit of the whey water that was expelled during hanging, just to make it a little bit more runnier. So if it's too thick, just use the leftover whey. There we go. So that's about the right consistency, I reckon. So the Fromage Blanc should be the consistency of very thick yogurt. So just a quick taste to make sure the salt levels are okay. And I think it is. So perfect for savoury dishes. If you wanted to use it for sweet dishes, probably don't add the salt at all. So just whisking that up a little bit, trying to get some of the lumps out. There are a few little ones in there. It looks like runny cottage cheese. So once you've got it to the consistency you want, then just pour it into an airtight container. It can be used in place of sour cream, cream cheese, or any yogurt in many dishes. So you can store it in the kitchen fridge for up to 2 weeks. So back to Gav for commentary and a taste test. So that was the simplest of processes. Very simple. I did have it in the sink. The precision cooker was not on all the time. I kind of used it as a temperature gauge. So the heating element wasn't on all the time. I just wanted to know what temperature the water bath was. So it was hovering around 22, 23 degrees Celsius during the entire make of this cheese. So what does it taste like? Well, I think I may have oversalted a little bit. It's runnier than cream cheese. It's also runnier than, it's not as runny as, say, sour cream you'll be used to, and it's a little bit thicker than yogurt. It is a little bit lumpy, and I couldn't get rid of the lumps when I whisked it, but I think that's very similar to what it actually is like. So, let's get a little bit, now that I've stirred it a little bit and put the whey back into it, there it is there, looking luscious. Let's put a bit on a cracker. Now you can make this, you can have this salted or unsalted. The unsalted version will not last as long because it won't keep bacteria and mold away. However, the salted version can be used in so many different recipes. But before I tell you about those recipes, let me just have a taste. That's really good. So it's got a little bit of tartness, not like yogurt, but a little bit of acidity, a little bit of acid development. It's not smooth, a little bit grainy, just a little, but don't let that put you off. And a little bit salty. I might have gone over the top on the salt. However, the recipe I found said that it needed 2 teaspoons, so I kind of stuck to that. You could ease off a little bit, probably 1 would be just as salty enough. But you can use this in many, many savoury dishes. Let me just finish this off. Very, very nice. So it's a lovely little simple, quick white cheese. Like I said, very similar to the consistency of maybe even a very runny cottage cheese as well, because of the lumps in it. So if you like cottage cheese, then you could drain it a little bit longer. I drained it for 6 hours. The recipe stated between 4 and 6 hours. 4 for a much runnier Fromage Blanc. 6 hours for a firmer. And I actually had to add a little bit more whey back into it because I thought it was a little bit too firm when I mixed the cheese up. Now, if you wanted it even more like cottage cheese, then probably another couple of hours wouldn't hurt. So you could actually push that out to about 8 hours of draining in the bag. So, a great little cheese. What I'm going to do, and this is not sponsored or anything, I found a recipe website that has over 100 recipes to use Fromage Blanc in. You know, all the way from tarts to cheesecakes to potato or gratin. All those sorts of amazing French style recipes, even quiche Lorraine, that it can be used in. And when you get this much yield from 3 litres of milk, it's quite outstanding, and you really do have to use it for cooking. So I am going to use it for cooking. I'll whip up a few recipes, take a few photos and pop them onto the community page of the channel to show you what you can do with Fromage Blanc. Anyway, thanks for joining me today, curd nerds. You can pick up the cultures to make this cheese over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. Don't forget, I've got 2 books in publication. You can get them as ebooks, and the links are in the description for those, as well as spiral bound versions over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. Just go and check out the cheese section and you'll see there are lots of books on offers, including my 2 books. Keep Calm and Make Cheese, and Keep Calm and Make More Cheese. Well, thanks for watching, curd nerds, and I'll see you next time.